Good morning. It is 6:32 a.m. on Friday, June 23rd, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I feel like I had plans for something to talk about and then it all fell out of my head as soon as I started talking. I don't know what that's all about. Yesterday was a pretty good day. Uh, just so you guys are aware, I'm probably going to stop talking about Luna every single day, unless there's some sort of development that I feel like you guys should know about. Um, and as of right now, the only development worth discussing is that Luna is asleep under the desk with her head on my foot, which is pretty sweet. Uh, what was it? Oh, man, I had something. I knew I was planning to talk about X, and that was gone. I could talk about TV shows, I guess. This week I watched the season finale of both Fargo season 3 and I think Better Call Saul's was episode this week was the season finale as well, and American Gods, which has this weird, I think it's like 8 episode season, which is strange. I mean, I guess they're allowed to have the season be whatever they want, but some good TV shows that I was enjoying watching. Fargo, I've talked about before on these videos actually, but it's been neat in the sense that the 3 seasons so far have all been anthology, in the sense that each season is a self-contained story with new characters. But I've enjoyed all 3 seasons, and I think it's just good stuff with interesting characters. They kind of pulled a Lady and the Tiger style ending, which I don't know. I mean, I feel like this one worked better than most of the times that people try it, but I'm not a huge fan of that. Because it's one thing to have the original Lady and the Tiger story be kind of making an interesting point with it, right? Where you're just sort of showing and demonstrating the storytelling tool of, you can change the feeling of the end of a story just by where you stop telling it. And leaving it in that ambiguity. And it's an interesting storytelling experiment, but I feel like almost every other story that ever does it isn't doing it like to make a point or to do something interesting. It's more like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this Lady and the Tiger type thing? And more often than not, it's probably just because they haven't come up with a satisfying way to actually end it. Life of Pi, incidentally, has an interesting riff on that idea, where it's not so much the ending that is left undetermined, so much as whether or not you're supposed to believe everything that came before. And that one is kind of extra rich, because, of course, there's an actual tiger in one version of the story and not the other. Which is cool. And so, like, the ending of the Fargo was not one that I felt like was sort of extra thematically rich, as much as the season did have a theme running through it of competing worldviews. One being very sort of mercenary and nihilistic, like the strong are always going to defeat the weak, and that's how it should be, and so on. And the other being more like, no, it's important to stand up for what you think is right, and morality is important, and you got to do the right thing and hope that it works out. And then so the ending of the season kind of leaves us in this position of saying, okay, well, so who's right? We will, we're basically told one or the other of 2 things is going to happen, and depending on which one it is, that proves one worldview right or not. And it's set up that way, but then we're denied finding out the actual answer. But yeah, I mean, I think it is a very good season in general, even though, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the deliberately ambiguous endings like that. American Gods, I feel like is very. There's a lot of fun stuff happening there, but I feel like the way they've structured the story, it's a little bit weird in a story that's featuring literal gods planning to have a god war. Um, the story feels oddly low stakes, though. I feel like what what is maybe missing is that it's not clear what effect this war might have on ordinary people, or whether it's really just something that, the gods are fighting each other and who cares. I don't want to overstate that because I'm going to continue watching it and there's a lot of great stuff in it, but I feel like that's maybe what's missing that they need to ramp up for season two is some larger indication of, like, if we're going to have a god war, it should feel epic and not just like the petty squabbles of these colorful characters. That's my thought. Anyway, um, although that was a weird book too. I feel like the book had, I don't want to call it similar issues, but it's a strange tone in it. But yeah, pretty good. And then Better Call Saul is another show where I really love it moment to moment. I love those characters. I love following them. But my only fear there is that there's been a number of shows that I've stopped watching because while they were always good and well made, when they're it depends on what the story is, right? And unfortunately, like as the story of Better Call Saul develops, basically what you see is like the long arc of this show is taking a like a bit of a hustler, but otherwise good-hearted guy who just wants to make people happy, and watch him turn into a cynical, nihilistic sleazeball. So that's a hard story to watch in slow motion, but it's still a very well made show. It's very interesting, and I'm invested in pretty much every little story arc there. Oh, okay. Well, so I've talked about TV shows, and so I will talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes. How about that?